Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to yet another session of Steel Mint Engage, a 5-day webinar series covering a broad spectrum of topics ranging from iron ore, gold to scrap and steel. The objective is to understand the perspective of industry leaders on various topics identified for discussion and enable our clients to have a better understanding on how each sector is likely to evolve in the near future. I'm Madhumita Mukherjee, editor Steel Mint, your host for this afternoon. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed sponsors, NMDC, Tata Steel, and Rungta Steel. This ongoing session is on the Indian auto recycling industry, current trends, opportunities, and challenges. With the formal launch of the National Automobile Scrappage Policy in Gujarat on 13 August 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi described it as a key step towards ensuring self-sufficiency in domestic manufacturing. The policy also aims to improve fuel efficiency and reduce cost of components for the auto industry. Additionally, experts are of the view that the scheme would greatly boost India's domestic scrap generation. I welcome our honored guest and speaker for this session, Mr. Yogesh Bedi, Chief Steel Recycling Business, Tata Steel. But before we invite Mr. Bedi to share his views, I would now invite Ms. Nishta Mukherjee, General Manager, Iron Ore and Scrap at Steel Mint, to deliver a short overview of India's ferrous scrap market. Over to you, Ms. Mukherjee.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I hope my presentation is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is.
So we'll have a quick look at the auto recycling industry in India, the current trends, opportunities, and challenges. Well, starting with India's crude steel production and India's ferrous scrap demand. So we have seen an increase in both ferrous scrap demand and crude steel production. India's crude steel production has risen from around 109 million tons level seen in FY20, and we expect the volumes to remain roughly around 145 million tons by FY25. In close correlation to that, we expect India's demand for ferrous scrap to also increase from the current levels of around 29 million tons to about 40 million tons by FY25. Now, when we talk about India's current ferrous scrap demand, which stands around 29 million tons, the share of imported stands roughly around 5 to 6 million tons, and rest is domestically generated. Out of the 29 million tons, which is consumed annually, the share for the foundries would be roughly around 3 to 4 million tons, and rest goes for the steelmaking units. Now let's have a bifurcation of India's ferrous scrap consumption, grade-wise as well as source-wise. So on the left-hand side, you can see the grade-wise ferrous scrap consumption in India, with heavy melting scrap and light melting scrap occupying the largest share of about 63%, followed by prime scrap with a share of 25%, and the other volumes are occupied by shredded, turning, boring, as well as railways. Coming on to the second bifurcation for the source-wise ferrous scrap consumption in India. So we see the largest volume coming in from the demolition, 25% from the industrial waste. Of course, 5 million tons is imported annually, roughly. Rest from the household, railways, and the ones which is generated from Alang. So that is how India's ferrous scrap industry looks all about. Now let's have a quick look at India's recently launched vehicle scrappage policy and our today's talk for the webinar. So what is the objective behind setting up of this policy? Yes, it's to reduce the presence of old and polluting vehicles on the roads, which can reduce the vehicular air pollutants in the air, as well as make India self-sufficient in manufacturing activities, and of course, achieve a better fuel efficiency and formalize the vehicle scrapping sphere currently, which is a bit unorganized as of now. Now, what the policy says, it recommends fitness tests for all the private and commercial vehicles that are more than 20 and 15 years old, respectively. In the absence of these fitness certificates, registration of such vehicles will stand to be automatically cancelled. Government, in order to boost this policy, has announced many incentives. Road tax rebates at the extent of 25% for the personal vehicles, 15% for the commercials. Again, similarly, rebate on the purchase of new vehicles against the scrapping certificate for the previous ones, and waiver of registration fees for a new purchase vehicle. Other benefits that can be achieved from this auto scrappage policy are additional investments to the extent of around 10,000 crore, and of course, the job opportunities, which is expected to be around 35,000 crore. So that's it from my end. Madhumita ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Nishta, for the detailed presentation. Let me now turn to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Yogesh Bedi. Mr. Bedi is a steel industry veteran with over 35 years of experience. Of late, you may have seen him making headlines as he is busy setting up the steel recycling business for Tata Steel. The first of the many plants envisaged has been already commissioned at Rohtak, Haryana. This initiative of Tata Steel is a disruptor of sorts and is likely to change the way scrap is bought and sold in India. We'll hear more about that and the industry from Mr. Bedi. Over to you, Mr. Bedi.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Just give me a moment. I'm trying to share the presentation. Yeah. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll be specifically talking about the vehicle scrappage policy and the opportunity that is emerging from this policy that has recently come out. So first and foremost, what is this auto scrappage policy doing? It is completing this circular economy loop. As we know, just a minute. As we know, steel is primarily made from the popular methods of making steel, iron ore, coal, and all that. And then this circular economy loop is there. Steel recycling and auto scrappage is, closing the circular economy loop. If we are, removing the 9 million, currently this 9 million vehicles are supposed to be having met the, crossed the end of life. If we are to remove that, so these figures are for that, it reduces so much of resources, and so much of carbon dioxide is reduced, and so much of energy is saved. And assuming that some of these 10% of these vehicles get replaced by the EVs, electric vehicles, so much of fossil fuel is conserved. So that has got it is basically a sustainability initiative and has got far-reaching implications. So I don't know whether this auto recycling, though people have tried to explain whether about the benefits of this policy, whether these have been actually drilled down and been understood by the people at large. So hence I'm taking a couple of minutes to explain the benefits of this policy. Also, recycling at large, creates 43,000 crores of revenue potential. It creates so much of employment. It saves so much of foreign exchange, because when you are running these vehicles, polluting vehicles, and older vehicles which are consuming a lot of fuel, there's so much of foreign exchange. It will save so much of foreign exchange. in terms of reduced oil bill, promoting auto industry adoption of electric vehicles, which is better for the environment, and availability of so much of scrap for recycling, and so many, this centers, testing centers, etc., that government is proposing will come up, and that will create opportunities and all. So the government has been very proactive, and all these policies that are being talked about, that are stated over here, they have, they brought out a number of policies one after the other. ELV policy is the most recent one. Then there's a green tax, which is proposed by Morth. Steel scrap policy has already come out earlier, maybe a couple of years back. Bureau of Resource Efficiency policy has come out. Circular economy policy has come out. Scrap codes are being revised. So there's number of steps that the government is taking, and it is opportunity for the industry and the SMEs and the MSMEs and the entrepreneurs to take up this opportunity and set up dismantling centers. So what does ELV dismantling look like? So this is basically, it's in a nutshell, it is trying to show, how a car is dismantled, in the first two, this thing, and then it is logged. Then these logged cars, after dismantling, go to the shredder, and the shredded product goes to the electric arc furnace or the induction furnace for melting. So this is briefly trying to explain how this industry works. The ELV market in India, as we said, just one sec. Okay. Yeah, so the government is talking about some 90 lakh vehicles on the roads, and this is how the breakup is there. In Delhi NCR, there's so many vehicles which have reached end of life already. Okay, and there is also a number which is given for 2025. So there's 90 lakhs, but that number is growing significantly. It is going to become 280 lakhs, 2.8 millions by FY25. And these are, so basically what happens, the active life a vehicle has about 5 to 6 years, then it has a passive life of 7 to 8 years. The vehicle is used by refurbishing and replacing spare parts. And then it is a storage period, the period in which the vehicle is not used but is kept standing, 2 to 3 years. So this is the life of a vehicle. That is how probably the government has arrived at some 15 years or something like that. Just a minute. Yeah. And just as an additional example, while I'd given the numbers for all India, this is just for the north, giving some numbers. And this is the vehicle population density. So if you see, Delhi NCR has by far the largest vehicle population density, which is 5,000 vehicles per square kilometer. Yeah, so this is the opportunity that is arising very near home. That is, Delhi. It's a lot of sense to put up some centers right away, but also, so I have not shown for other regions, but we have shared in the previous page in which other regions also mentioned. Current process and challenges. Basically, the generation happens like this of this thing. They're bulk disposers. There's small and medium disposers and individual disposers. The vehicles are sold through auctions. They go to auto workshops after reaching end of life, and they go to auto dealerships. There the steps are depollution happens, dismantling happens, and all that. And sales and disposal after that, some vehicles may be refurbished, some may be needing some specialized refurbishment, then it might be going to scrappers, and then waste disposal. This is broadly the steps. The government is considering of creating some recycling zones also, and this is in the policy or consideration phase. And the purpose is to create a self-sustaining ecosystem of recycling industries where the byproducts waste of one becomes the raw material of another. So basically, in this carbon conscious world, when sustainability is going to be so important and carbon emissions are a big no-no and climate change is of a concern, recycling is going to be very important. That, it has to be drilled down to everybody, understood by everybody. And any opportunity related to recycling should be sort of considered going forward. Scrap, which was hitherto considered to be a dirty word, now scrap is becoming a very important future raw material. It is sort of becoming a hero. It is going to be very important in the future. Scrap, not only of steel scrap, but most other scraps of any ferrous and non-ferrous metals and all that. It's going to be very important from the sustainability considerations. So the government is thinking of, this is another thing that the government is considering putting up some recycling zones. Typically, a recycling zone would house, we have benchmarked with some other countries, a copper recycling unit, a steel recycling unit, a aluminum recycling unit, a battery recycling unit, plastic recycling unit, e-waste recycling unit, then vehicle dismantlers, then papers recycling. So, all these, it will typically house all this. And currently, people are skeptical. And tomorrow the government should not say that you wind up your industry from here and move outside city limits. So once a recycling zone comes, all those problems go away, and the people who are setting it up, they can be rest assured that they'll not be chased out of that premises. In a vehicle recycling park, suppose it's only a vehicle recycling park, what happens? The ecosystem would comprise of lead, acid, and lithium-ion battery recycling and all that. Then there will be some residue which will be recycled. Copper, aluminum will come out. Then steel shells will go for shredding facility. The steel shell, the steel from the car. Then there'll be reusable spare parts. Then there'll be printed circuit boards and catalytic converters and all. So various things will come out from a vehicle recycling unit. What are the value drivers for authorized dismantlers? What is there in vehicle recycling? Higher cross sales. Basically, someone who comes in to sell his old vehicle or park his own vehicle, the authorized dismantler has got a opportunity to sell him a new vehicle, or a dealer, automobile dealer. So it creates potential leads. There's some incentives from the OEMs of these cars. Then there's a high margin business which he can start, because there's a good money to be made from recycling, from refurbishing of parts and sale of parts and all that. Then there is direct sourcing tie-ups you can have. Precious metal recovery is there. I don't know how many of us know that the catalytic converters go all the way to Belgium and Japan for recovery of some precious metals and all that. Spare parts recovery. For the customers, there are many benefits also. There's a transparent pricing, there's incentive on new vehicle, hassle-free transaction. He gets, what customers don't see is the life cycle cost. When he's running an old vehicle, he's not realizing he's consuming more fuel, he's running, spending more on the maintenance costs and all that. And the life cycle cost is a concept which is alien to the common man. I mean, they don't understand, but they end up incurring higher costs in running an older vehicle. As against that, if they have a new vehicle, so that is the main advantage to the customer. And of course, there's some advantages to the government. It helps in the economy, to boost the economy and all that, to improve the pollution condition of to improve the environment and all. Typically, one dismantling center, what would it entail? It would entail, investment of about 10 crores plus the land. It will need about 5 acres of land. Typically, a dismantling center would dismantle around 1,000 to 1,500 cars, and it would generate 1,000 tons per month of ferrous scrap, 100 tons non-ferrous scrap, which would be aluminum, copper, and things like that. And direct revenue potential per month would be around 4.5 crores. Don't go into too much of the numbers over here. I'm just trying to give a broad sense. Of course, whoever comes in, he'll have to do a detailed study and all. This is just to give you that these numbers are not very big, and entrepreneur, for him, arranging 5 to 10 crores of capital should not be difficult, especially with the government help and all that. Then the equipment that he'll be needing, again, these are not very complex equipment. He would need a car logger, for example. You compress the car so that it can be transported, 5 to 6 cars on a truck. You need a depollution polluting equipment, where you'll have pumps and all to suck out the liquids, refrigerants, fuels and all that. Then you'll have need some tools, trolleys, scissor lift and all that. These are very basic things for anybody in the automobile dealer segment and all that. There'll be land and some civil requirements, etc. So approximately 10 crores of investment. And the ecosystem works like this. There'll be about 4 to 5 dismantlers who'll be feeding into one steel recycler, who'll be having a shredder and all that. Like, we've got a shredding plant we have set up the first one, and we'll be setting up more in the west and the south also. So typically 4 to 5 dismantling centers feeding into one steel recycler. This is recovery from a ELV, what typically comes out, and there are a whole lot of parts. And just to give you a sense, a few days back, my car banged into someone, and I lost a light, the rear light. Or was it the front light? Maybe the front light. It cost me from the showroom 1 lakh rupees. So just one light, if you sell from a reused car, it can fetch you a substantial value. So there's so many parts which can be sold. Obviously, what is required is typically why people have difficulty in selling this, because they try to sell it in a very localized area around themselves, which is in the vicinity. What is actually required is to set up a digital, to leverage digital, have an app or something like that, so that these parts, can be sold across India. So if someone is has broken a light of his car, it can be easily at, if it is costing 1 lakh rupees in the showroom, it can easily be sold at any value less than that, and it can be shipped across at very nominal price. So that is what the digital does. It can, all these parts, if you have a good digital they can be couriered across India. So that is what required is to have a good digital. And I'm sure that, someone will, sooner or later, some mega app will come in which all these things are integrated, and there's one app which is, and somebody must be thinking of this already, to have a one app which is, for buying and selling, just like we have for Uber or Swiggy. What they do is try to create a platform for demand and supply. So likewise, this will come that, there's a demand of spare parts and a supply of spare parts. So selling should not be a problem if we keep all these things into account. And there's so many other parts. I had mentioned about a catalytic converter, which is mentioned on the right side. That itself is a very costly item. Then there'll be copper, aluminum, the doors, the tires, the hubs, the whatever you call, wherever that thing is mounted, that rib on which it is mounted, the wheel. So there's so many parts which can be sold, and typically a car is actually bought for 20 to 25,000, the old vehicle. But as we said, the price can go up to somewhere I mentioned. Just a minute. Okay, so I have not mentioned it here. Approximately, maybe it can go to 70 to 80,000 or even more. The upside is it can go very high, depending on, suppose you are able to sell just one light, you have recovered 5 times the cost of the, if you are able to sell it at maybe 70, 80,000, you are able to recover through selling one light itself the cost of the car. So there's a huge potential over there. I just thought that there's a lot of uncertainty, apprehensiveness, and anxiety, and many people keep talking to us, what is required. They don't understand this policy very well. What is required, probably the government also needs to explain this project in more greater detail, so that people understand what they need to do to set up this vehicle dismantling center. And this is one opportunity I took also to explain, at least to, whatever is the number of participants. I see that some 25 participants are there. At least some of us, will get some idea. We are happy to share our or discuss further. If someone is interested, you can contact us. And if there's some questions right now, I think this is the end of the presentation. I can take the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bedi, for that presentation, which I'm sure has been able to clear many doubts for many of us. Now, we have a few questions from our side. Mr. Bedi, we have been hearing that domestic scrap generation is taking a hit because auto production is being impacted because of the semiconductor shortage. So to what extent is it happening domestically?
So, these two are actually unrelated things. What you're talking about is, since the auto production is low right now because of the semiconductor issue, scrap generation is low. Yeah, that is rightly so, because that is the industrial scrap. The scrap that comes out from Maruti or the likes of Hyundai and other people who make cars, since the production is lower and maybe going at around 60 to 70% of their capacity utilization, to that extent, the scrap that they generate, which is called the prompt scrap, is lesser. This subject is talking about auto vehicle recycling. These are old cars. They have got nothing to do with the current production or the semiconductor issue. We are talking of old cars which have reached their end of life, which we said is right now approximately, as per the government estimates, 90 lakh vehicles across India, and this number will go. So these are up for recycling. And since we don't have the policy in place, in the sense, they have given some timelines that by 2022 this and this will be done, and etc. And the vehicle dismantling centers are not ready. People are still wondering, and as I said, I keep hearing from many people who are wanting to set up dismantling centers. There's lack of clarity, and they don't have the way forward how they can go and set up this business. So once those come up, and once the timeline, so this is a separate channel altogether. So
and this is from new car generation.
To the extent that the scrap generation of the prompt scrap from the auto companies is less, and because this policy is not in place, this as it is, the auto recycling or the vehicle scrappage is not happening in large numbers. This will happen once the policy and the enablers, we talked about enablers, that fitness centers and all that will come up. So then that will happen more. Yeah. Does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Nishta, would you like to ask anything?
Yes. So, like just a follow-up question on your remarks that people will get to know more once.
Kindly louder, please, a bit.
Yeah, is it better now, sir? My next question is, sir, as you mentioned that once the policy comes out to be more formalized and in much organized manner, so people will get to know more about that. So when do we expect some of more, scrapping centers to be announced by the government? Any views on that?
See, the government has not to announce the scrapping centers. The government has brought out a policy, and now entrepreneurs have to come up with their proposals. Like this initiative was launched in Gujarat, that was just to propel or catalyze that process. I mean, nothing new happened over there. Whatever the policy has been announced, the same thing was reiterated, and a platform was given that I think the Gujarat government has slightly modified or slightly improvised on the policy, and maybe to catalyze the process or to speeden up the process, that they launched it. But similar thing probably the various state governments will do. But I'm saying now the ball is in the court of the entrepreneurs to set up this, to come forward and to bring out proposals and set up this. And I would imagine that there is lack of clarity, and people are waiting and watching and how to set it up, how to go about it, what is required, what is the project size, what are the machines required, how will they buy, how will they sell. So there's lack of clarity about it. I'm sure, through forums such as this, more clarity will be given, and we should, through CII, FICCI, we should have a lot of such sessions where people will discuss this more, and there'll be, and maybe from the government side also, we have, suggested to them that you should bring out a project report, what typically a dismantling center entails, what do they need to, what is the first step, what is the second step, what is required from the entrepreneur, what is the size of the ticket, all that. Probably it is taking time because of that.
Got your point, sir. And apart from Tata Recycling, any other projects that you have been hearing are coming up for setting up such auto recycling plants in India?
Tell me.
Sir, apart from Tata Steel Recycling, there have been some more projects that we have been hearing on and off, that they are also very much keen to set up such plants. So any update on those projects who have lined up a similar setup of these plants?
No, other than Tata's.
Yes, I mean in India, apart from Tata Steel Recycling.
This is in the public domain. I keep hearing that some auto companies are thinking of, Tata Motors is thinking of putting some dismantling centers. I can talk about the Tata Group, but I keep hearing from some that some other companies also might be thinking the same thing, and it's not fair for me to take speak their plans for them.
Thank you, sir. Madhumita ma'am, you can ask.
Yes.
Anything else?
Let's talk about your Rohtak plant. How has been your experience throughout the process of setting up the unit in terms of product offerings, challenges, and way forward? Because it's first of its kind in the country. Also, you mentioned that we know that more plants are in the pipeline. So how soon are they coming up, and where? And will these be set up by Tata's alone, or in tie-up with some other players? If you could tell us a bit more.
The two plants, one is being thought of in the west and one is in the south. We have not decided on the locations or the states, so we would not like to specify it. And tie-ups and all, again, we would not like to discuss about it in this forum. So the two plants are coming up, but yes, about the first plant, I can tell you there were lots of challenges, but we overcame it, and it's now running very well. It has been commissioned. The product has been really lapped up by the market, and it is getting very good traction. We have also gone ahead and done some first in the world things. We have done some branding of the scrap, which was first in the world. We are primarily producing shredded scrap, which was hitherto imported, and so we are saving from that to that extent, a lot of foreign exchange. And there are lots of benefits for people to use the shredded scrap from domestic sources rather than imported. Earlier, it was being imported, and imports, as you know, has got a lot of problems of long lead times, fluctuations, and also the quality, would be circumscribed, what has been sent, what has been ordered to what has been received and all that. And it would take 1.5 to 2 months to reach and all that. Here you got a domestic source which can reach you overnight. The quality is very good. It's better than, some of the scrap that was being imported. It saves a lot of foreign exchange. It is available within arm's length of desire, as we say. Also, in addition to the shredded scrap, we are selling baled scrap, which has got very high bulk density, very good quality. We are trying to give certificates, test certificates. This is first in India that someone is giving test certificates for scrap, and we are giving certification for radioactivity, that the material is radioactivity free. It was not in vogue. Radioactivity is a very important element. and we should insist that anybody selling scrap should be certifying that, because if it goes into steel, it cannot be removed after that. Radioactivity will remain for all time to come, and for all it goes into steel or something like that, and it is in the spoon or the plate or the glass that we are using, radioactivity could be there. So it is very important that so we are doing that. So our scrap is among the best that is there available, and compare better than some of the people in the globally also.
Right. So I think a good amount of dependency on imported scrap, because they could now be shifted towards increased domestic scrap.
Nishita, please speak louder. I can't hear you.
Okay. So just that, as you mentioned, that dependency on imported scrap would come down now with the domestic scrap generation getting a boost in India. So yes, that is surely a good point for Indian players. Madhumita ma'am, you can ask your question now.
Again, Mr. Bedi, I'm going to ask you something very market related. We have been hearing about requests being put up to prevent unaccountable transactions in northern India for domestic scraps trading. So you would like to comment on that? Anything? It's not related to the scrappage policy as such, but market related, trade related.
This is in government domain. Why do you? The industry has made a lot of representation about this. There needs to be more transparency and more better governance. But I think it is in active consideration of the government. It is being looked into it very closely.
And a last question, sir. Like you mentioned that the scrap that is coming out of the Rohtak plan will help to alleviate imports. I mean, restrict imports rather. So, to what extent and within, say, what time frame can we expect to bring about a reduction in imports and imported scrap, and thereby ease the pressure on foreign exchange?
See, about broad numbers, about 30 million tons is the demand in India. Approximately 25 million tons is generated in India, and 5 million tons is imported. So right now we are 0.5 million. Our capacity is 0.5 million. But soon we'll be adding more plants. So it is not as if it will stop all the imports, but with time, this will reduce, and people will start preferring this more. They obviously it supports Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is better. It is easier to handle and all that. It is faster, quick. Lead time is shorter. So people will start preferring it. So it may not stop all the thing, but it reduces to that extent, to whatever extent it is available. It will reduce. So when we set up some 2 more plants, we'll be around 1.5 million. The 4th plant will make it 2 million that way. And so it reduces, it does not stop, but it people start, the demand for the domestic scrap increases significantly. I mean, people start preferring it.
How soon is other units in the Western South coming up? Are we going to see them
our teams have already been put in place
this fiscal?
I mean, they are already doing the market study and all. So maybe another, if we even 0 date, that it takes about 1.5 years to set it up. So maybe in around 2 years, both our plants should be up and running in the Western South.
Okay, fine.
So one question from my end related to market update itself. So as we have seen government promoting the auto scrappage generation and policies, do we expect any such thing coming in for household scrap generation?
Maybe not household to that extent, but yes, white goods definitely. See, the way it is being thought of recycling of automobile, white goods is another issue which is very prevalent. I mean, the white good recycling is very prevalent overseas. Here it is being, again, like auto recycling, it is happening in the informal way. I think sooner than later, government will think about a better, and also what will happen is for the vehicle scrappage itself, EPR will come, extended producer responsibility. So that is also in active consideration of the government, where the automobile companies are given the responsibility to track down what is the end of life vehicles and where have their vehicles reached in their journey, and to ensure that certain percentage of the vehicles that they are producing, they are going in for recycling and all that. So this will come not only for automobile manufacturers, but also for the white goods sooner than later. And the white goods or consumer electronics also, recycling and some policy like that, I think should be coming sometime in the near future.
Okay, sir. Nishta, do you have any further questions?
No, I'm done with all of mine.
Then I think we can draw the webinar to a close, actually. Thank you, all the viewers, for tuning in, and a very, very big thank you to Mr. Yogesh Bedi for joining us. I also take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, NMDC, Tata Steel, and Rungta Steel once again, and to our supporting associations, the Indian Steel Association and Steel Users Federation of India. We also want to thank our media partner, Recycling Today, for their support.